Hello everyone, this is Jeff from IELTS Writing Fix. Today I'm going to show you how an incorrect task response can drop your mark from 7 to 6 and how to correct it. So let's take a look first of all at what a Band 7 task response says. Now this is directly from the band descriptors. It says you must address all parts of the task. All parts. So you need to know that you are addressing or responding to or talking about, is what this means, all parts of the task. And I will show you how a student didn't do that, and I will then show you my example of how you do it. Okay. Now, if you don't do this, you end up in here. A Band 6 task response says addresses all parts of the task, although some parts may be more fully covered than others. That means basically, for example, if you have 2 points in your agree-disagree essay, one of them is off topic or is not really directly answering the question. We must directly answer the question. Really important. So take a look at this question. What I suggest you do is write the question down on a piece of paper, or just get a piece of paper and write down your introduction, only the introduction to this question. What are your ideas? And especially important is say your point of view and say why you have that point of view. What are your reasons for that point of view? Okay, so do an introduction, give your point of view if you agree, or your point of view if you disagree. Not both, just one of them, only one, and give 2 reasons why. Okay, so then you're going to get an idea of how you respond to this question. And I'm going to show you how a student responded here. So the student says, today the market economic is developed quickly and consumers are the leading role in the market instead of retailers. Although consumers can be influenced by advertising, right? What we need to know is this here. This essay will argue that the high sales of popular goods reflect the real needs of the society. Okay, so the question says, do the high sales of popular goods reflect the power of advertising? Yes or no, basically. So, yes, the high sales are because of advertising, or no, the high sales are not because of advertising. That's the question, right? Because this says, and not something else. Right? So, the high sales of popular consumer goods are because of the power of advertising and not because of the real needs of society. Okay. So, we have to say high sales of popular consumer goods are because of the power of advertising or are not because of the power of advertising. That's what it is. It's about high sales is because of the power. Okay, now if we look at the reasons, so we have because, so the structure is okay, but because there are many consumers only buy things they need. Okay, so the student is arguing high sales of goods reflects the real needs of society. Okay, so it reflects the real needs of society, which is kind of okay, but it's better to say high sales are not because of the power of advertising. That's the thesis. High sales are not because of the power of advertising. So, because we'll say why it's reflecting the real needs of society. Because there are many consumers only buy things they need. Okay, so that makes sense, right? So what you need to do when you do your exam, you need to make sure you're addressing all parts of the task. And what that means is this question is asking you, are the high sales because of the power of advertising? And this answer says, it reflects the needs of society. So is this answer directly saying it's not because of the power of advertising. No, it's focusing on this part. Okay, so you really want to talk about both. Okay, I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So we have to be very, very slow and careful here, because if we get this wrong, that means we drop to 6. And it doesn't matter what you write on the rest of your essay, it's going to be 6. No higher. You're not going to get 7. You might get 6.5, but you won't get 7. If you do not address this question as it is written, if you do not say in here, respond to these points, you will not get 7. Okay? So let's go very carefully here. Because there are many consumers only buy things they need. All right, so it's not the real needs of society. No, student disagrees and says that consumers only buy things they need. So it's not reflecting the power of advertising. Okay, so that kind of matches. It's not directly saying, answering this, but it's kind of semi-indirectly. We have to think about it. If we are examiners and we read this and we have to decide, does this answer this question? It takes us some effort. That effort is not good. The effort means, the examiner can be tired, in a bad mood. The examiner must follow this, but sometimes you don't know, right? How the examiner is feeling or what the examiner is thinking. If the examiner says, this is not clear, I don't see this answering this, then the mark drops. So you have to make it 100% clear for the examiner that you have fully addressed all parts of the task. Your job is to make it clear, and I will show you how to do that. Okay, so the second point is here, and the influence of advertising will not continue long. Again, is it reflecting the power of advertising? Well, no, because the influence of advertising will not continue long. Now, what's wrong with this is this idea of how long the advertising influence will last. So it sort of does answer the question. It's just not really clear. It's not stating it super directly. And the more direct you state it, the better. So this might get 7. The examiner might say, oh, the influence of advertising will not continue long. Therefore, the high sales doesn't reflect the power of advertising. Maybe, but it's not clear. Right. So let's look at a model. This essay will argue that the high sales of popular goods. Now, actually, we're going to change this model. We're going to make it even better. So this essay will argue that, now, one little point I will make here is the high sales of popular goods is the same, these are the same words as here. That's okay. It's okay to use the same words. You should paraphrase, but it's sort of a different point at this point. But as long as you, for this mark, address all parts of the task, we're using the same words talking exactly about the task. That means we're addressing the task. It's okay. The paraphrasing mark is a very small part of grammar. It's not a big part of your mark. It's a very 5% of your grammar mark. It's not important. So if you are just using the same words here and here, that's okay, because what you're doing is making it clear that you've done this. If it's not clear, you might end up here. Paraphrasing doesn't mean you'll be 6 or 7 in grammar, not at all. Okay, so the high sales of popular goods reflects the real needs of society because there are many consumers who only buy things they need. Okay, that's kind of similar to this point. And the influence of advertising, oh, how did I get the wrong one? Sorry, one second. I copied the wrong thing up there, sorry. this essay will argue that advertising does not drive up sales. Okay, here. This essay will argue that advertising does not drive up sales. Remember, the question says, high sales reflects the power of advertising. So drive up sales means high sales. Advertising does not. Super clear, right? Does advertising reflect the high sales? No, it does not. Super direct, simple response. That means it's very, very clear for the examiner to see that, Okay. So that means when I've been super clear here, that means that I will show the examiner that I have done this. Look at the words. You have to be really, really clear and understand what these words mean, because this is where your band comes from. It's not from some magical place in Narnia. Mark is coming directly from these words. Addresses all parts of the task. This is the task. Let's break it down. It's to say, do you agree or disagree? So just to choose one. Okay, just choose one, and you're addressing this. Okay, because you're talking about how much you agree, right? And here we have high sales of popular goods reflects the power of advertising and not the real needs. All right. So what I'm saying, and this is a really important point, because if you don't get this right, it can blow your whole exam. You know, you sit the listening, you sit the reading, you spend hours studying, you sit through the speaking exam, and you're nervous, and it's stressful, and your whole weekend's gone, and you're studying, and you blew the whole thing. You didn't get your 7 because you did not do this, right? That doesn't make any sense. So we have to be super clear here. You have to slow down and take your time here. There's no rush, okay? There's no rush. Getting this right, these ideas, is a big part of your mark, okay? So what I've done is I've made this super clear. And now I've said because, so this is something I'll teach in another video, and I'm going to tell the 2 reasons. Consumers naturally love shopping. Okay, there you go. There's a reason why high sales of popular goods does not reflect the power of advertising, because consumers naturally love shopping. Look, you can actually take this in, put this in here, and it's an answer. Just write because in there. All right, here's my answer. Look, I've just basically finished the sentence. High sales of popular consumer goods. Oh, I'm putting do not. So do or do not. Basically, that's how your answer is going, right? That makes sense? Okay, so you have to be very careful that you understand what this question is asking you. And my answer is saying they do not, because consumers naturally love shopping. You have to look at that and say to yourself, does that make sense? Is that a reason why high sales are not because of advertising? Yes, it is, because consumers naturally love shopping. I'm saying, so they will shop anyway. Right? It's not advertising, they're going to shop anyway. Okay, so I have addressed the task with this reason. Now the second reason, it's difficult to differentiate people's needs and wants. So it's not because actually we don't even know what is a need and what is a want. So it's very difficult to even say what is the power of advertising. Right. To be honest, it could be a better answer. It could be a better reason, but it's enough. I'm answering the question. Okay. And this kind of answers the question as well. But I think this is far clearer, right? Does or does not. Now, if we wanted to make it a little bit better and a little bit clearer, we can say, we can put this part in the thesis as well. Not the real needs of society. Okay. Do not drive up the sales and do reflect needs of society. Okay, there we go. Now we have both parts of that question just to make sure, right? Because, yeah, just to make sure, because we have those two parts of the sentence, this part and this part. If I'm doing this exam, I'm 100% sure that I'm answering that question. Okay, my reason is a little bit weak. This reason is a little bit weak and unclear. That is because this essay, this student has decided to argue that they do not. Now, that is, in this question, arguing they do not is a bad idea because it's very easy to argue for the power of advertising. It's harder to argue that advertising is not powerful. It's easier to say advertising is powerful because it's everywhere. It's in our phones. We see it every day. We see it all day long when we're using our phones. And on top of that, we see it on TV. Further, so that's one reason. The second reason is because advertising companies base their copywriting, their pictures, their advertising campaigns on highly sophisticated study of what works in advertising. They spend billions and billions of pounds and dollars and whatever currency to understand how to make people buy things. Really super easy to argue that. Arguing that they do not reflect is harder. Okay, that's why it seems weak. Now, that's okay. That's okay that these are not super strong here. Okay, because they are answering the question. But what we need to do then is make sure in the paragraph that the explanation is very, very good. Okay, so super clear explanation. Now, what I want to do is go on to this point of long introductions and why it drops your mark. Okay, same question, but we're going to take a look at why long introductions are not a good idea. And it's connected to what we just said. Okay, so we'll come back to it. So here we have 80 words in the student's introduction. The exam is only 250, right? That's 80 of 250. So that leaves us with 170, right? 170 words for 2 paragraphs and a conclusion. That means each paragraph is going to have, or the conclusion is going to be 20. That means it's going to be 75 per paragraph. Now, why is this a problem? Because that's only a few sentences, and look what the exam asks you to do. Right. This is again from the band descriptor. Presents, so it means say what it is. Extends means explain it more, how it works, and supports means give examples and reasons and evidence. We want to see why it works, and examples are good for that. Okay, so you have to do all 3 of these things in 75 words. And the stronger you do these and the more clearly you do these and the better the explanation, the higher the mark. But in 75 words, you don't have enough space to do all of this because you see you don't have the words to make a strong presentation and a strong extension and strong support. You don't have it. Okay? So there may be a tendency to overgeneralize. Okay, too general means you're not extending and supporting deeply. You're just saying a general thing. Okay? Or your ideas may lack focus. Same thing. Right? Too few words. Too few words. And the problem is, in all of these words, there's no marks. I mean, there's grammar, vocabulary, maybe coherence and cohesion, not really task response. And it's not the important part of the essay. This is just an introduction. This is just What's the topic? That's all. Okay? If you said, if you just said this, imagine you just said this, that would be okay. No problem. You wouldn't lose any marks. So there's all these wasted words in here that you need to do all of these things. Right? You need to explain something. Can you explain something in 20 words, 30 words? It's hard, you know? So this is a waste, right? Now, Band 6 presents relevant main ideas, but some may be inadequately developed, not developed. Okay, that means we didn't extend in support. Not enough words, no development. Okay, harder to make it clear. You have to make it clear in fewer words, you have to be very concise with your writing, and that's hard. Okay, higher level students can do that. If you're being clear in fewer words, it means you should be up 8 or 9 rather than 6 or 7. Okay, so let's go to the model essay. And look, we have a very short topic sentence, introductory sentence. And it is a complex sentence because we start with although. Advertising is highly sophisticated. That's a 7+ vocabulary. Comma, consumers have access to large amounts of information when buying products. Okay, this is a fact. This is true. And I will do another video on this. But in here, I'm giving the examiner a fact which connects to this idea. So I'm saying advertising doesn't drive up sales because people just have information anyway. They don't need advertising. Advertising doesn't influence them. They can get all the information they need. Okay, and it doesn't have to be like a direct proof. It's not a direct proof of my thesis, but it does lean towards. It's pushing towards. It is around the area of consumers are not influenced by advertising. Okay, and that's it. In grammar, it's a complex sentence, and I'm leaving the extra words for my paragraphs. So what we have in the student's paragraph is no development. So the advertisement may cause the first buy, but it will not be the reason for the consumer to buy it again. Okay, the problem here is, but advertising could drive millions of first sales. So you are not answering the question. You see that? Does advertising drive sales? Well, the student's saying it may cause the first one, but the first one could be millions of them. So I don't see that this is saying that it doesn't drive up sales. I'm seeing that this can drive up sales. Many people only buy things one time. So this essay, it's hard because now you're saying it's not the reason for the consumer to buy it again. Well, what if you sold millions, right? This is where this idea, the way you're thinking about the question, is losing you marks. It's weak, okay? Because you're going off into complicating the thing when it should be really, really simple. So let me see if I can give you this idea, but in a stronger way. So advertising is mitigated by consumer choice because consumers have access to information. Okay, now a couple of things here. Now we're going to develop afterwards. Okay, so first thing here is mitigated means made smaller. Okay, so advertising is made smaller. See, does not drive up sales. Advertising is made smaller by consumer choice. So consumers make their own choices. Why? Because consumers have access to information. Okay. I didn't give anything to this other side. There's no millions going on here. It's just, nope. Advertising is made smaller because consumers have a choice. And that information is related to their choice. And that information is related to this. Now, the question of development is a really big one. What does it mean? It means, tell me more about how this works. It means, tell me what information. Tell me how we can use that information to stop, lessen, mitigate advertising's power. Okay? So I need to explain, this is what development means. Now, if you wonder how this affects your mark, inadequately developed, that means not enough developed. This means good developed. Presents, extends, and supports. So present is here. Present. Actually, it's here as well. I put it in the model. That's the idea. This is the idea. And now I need to extend for a 7. Extend means develop. Same thing. Okay? Extend means this information can be things like the value of a product, how well it works, or consumer reviews, let's say. Okay, so what I'm doing basically, I mean, I haven't really thought about this carefully, but what I'm doing is saying, what is this information? So, okay, so they have access to information. What information, first of all? We need to explain that. So now I've explained. And as a result, consumers are well informed about the consumers can use this information to decide whether or not to buy. Okay, so use here is super important because advertising does not drive up sales. Consumers are, why? Because consumers use information to decide. This is super important because consumers decide by themselves. Consumers decide by themselves. Advertising is mitigated by consumer choice. Consumer choice is stronger than advertising. Advertising does not drive up sales. You see how this connects? And why is this true? Because they have information. What information? Here's the information. What do they do with the information? They use it to decide whether or not to buy. We come to the point where we say consumers decide. Okay, that's called development. Now, if we go here, the consumers may be attracted to the advertisement and buy the product without thinking about the function. No, we don't want them buying things because of advertising. That's not our thesis. Right? Look at the thesis is here, right? High sales of popular goods reflect the real needs of society. Well, hang on a second. Now you're saying high sales are because they're attracted by advertisements. Completely wrong. You're definitely only getting 6, if not less. However, okay, so now in the middle of the paragraph, it's however. So you don't have any space left to explain. Because you're just talking the other side, yeah, they buy some stuff. Don't put the other side here. Don't put the other side here at the beginning of the paragraph. It doesn't belong there. Don't talk about what the other side is. You explain why you have this point of view. Okay? So, however, as long as they find that they do not need the product at all, they may not buy it. Next time. Again, we could have sold millions, right? If a good is welcomed by the customers, its popularity has to last for a period. Has to? Why does it have to last? Maybe it's welcomed by the customers and it doesn't last. They only need it one time. Maybe it's just like a fad, like fidget spinners or some toy, right? So if there are no needs, there are no loyalty for the products, and high sales will not be possible. Again, this is not about loyalty. This is about high sales are possible here. You've said it's possible because you can buy it one time. So it's not about loyalty, and it's not about, let me write it to be clear. This essay is not about loyalty or longevity. It is about high sales. Okay? So don't say, oh, but they can buy it one time, because that could be millions of people buying. And if millions of people buy, we go back to the question. If millions of people buy, it means advertising does have an effect or power. Okay? So you really have to be careful of how you are thinking about this question. And what I recommend, part of the solution is here. You take the question, and we don't really need today. We have the word and here. Separate it. Let's separate this. Let's find the key ideas. So usually it says A influences B. Yes or no. That is the structure of an IELTS question for agree, disagree. Say A, high sales, influences advertising. Advertising influences high sales or creates high sales. Put creates in there, right? Yes or no? So your thesis, you have to say to yourself, you have to do this. What are they asking me? You have to be really careful. Advertising, right? So you go and do it with other questions, but do this. Understand A influences B, yes or no? And you have to say to yourself, yes, it does, no, it doesn't. And your whole essay explains why it does. Or if you do doesn't, explains why it doesn't. Okay? Good. So go to IELTSwritingfix.com. Let me put it in here for you. IELTSwritingfix.com and purchase some essay assessments. Okay. So you can find out where your errors are, and there are many of them that you can't see. Okay, and I will give you feedback like this on grammar, vocabulary, task response, coherence and cohesion. Okay, I haven't even talked about grammar in this much. I haven't talked about vocabulary. I haven't talked about coherence and cohesion. And I pretty much covered task response, the basics. But there's a lot in your essays. And if you make mistakes in them, you're going to have to take the whole exam again, which is a waste of money and a waste of time. I can show you where those errors are. I can show you how to fix them. And I can guarantee you'll get your mark. Okay? So go to IELTSwritingfix.com, purchase some assessments, check out my other videos, and good luck on your exam, guys.